going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio Robinson back with the latest and greatest on the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about our Washington Commanders. The countdown continues. We are now 18 days away from the start of the 2024 NFL Draft. So a little over 2 weeks more to speculate, to debate, to argue, and to absolutely civil war on social media about Jayden Daniels versus Drake May and versus JJ McCarthy. I know a lot of people don't want to include him, but there's a big three. There is a big three in this QB conversation, regardless of if people want it or not. And each day we grow closer to the draft, it feels like JJ McCarthy is also going to be a top 5 pick. So accept it if you'd like to. That's where reality is trending at this current point. But 18 days away from the NFL draft, we're now at finite season, where everybody's going to try to put their official stamp. This is going to happen. Step out there, stick their chest out, and say, this guy's going here. And Adam Schefter, the most reliable guy in the game, the number one Don Dada of NFL insiders, had some very interesting things to say about quarterback Jayden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner out of LSU. He comes on his podcast and says, I think at this current point, let's start it off. He starts with the quote, I know we're not supposed to be tipping picks. He does this shit every year. Like, if you're actually watching the timeline during the NFL draft, he always says things like, we're not supposed to be tipping picks, but he puts this coded language of still tipping picks on the timeline before they come out. Like, people tell me that people tell me in that building that the Washington Commanders have quite the affinity for Jayden Daniels. He'll tweet that out like 10 minutes before your team makes their pick and make it seem like he's not tipping the picks. So this is his shtick. This is his bit. And this is how he relays information during draft season. He says, we're not supposed to be tipping picks. He goes on a spiel about how Caleb Williams to Chicago is a lock. And he said, I'm going to pencil in Caleb Williams to Chicago. And since we're talking about penciling things in, all signs at this current moment point to Jayden Daniels being selected by the Washington Commanders at pick number 2. He said Jayden possesses all of the attributes Washington seeks in a quarterback. And NFL scouts league-wide have a large affinity for Jayden Daniels. They really like the guy, and he says all signs are pointing to Washington drafting him. He says Jayden Daniels really likes the idea of playing for Antonio Pierce and the Raiders. The Raiders also love that idea, but the Raiders don't have the second overall pick in the draft, and this guy is who many NFL insiders believe is going to be the second pick of the draft. So the Raiders can like him all they want to. They can make as many phone calls as they like to. They can't get in front of Washington for this pick. And he says, in regards to New England, I think the signs just continue to point to Jayden Daniels being the second overall pick. Caleb 1, Jayden Daniels 2, and then the New England Patriots would be on the clock at 3 with the possibility of taking Drake May or maybe JJ McCarthy. But as we speak right now, 3 weeks out from the draft is when he said this. He said, I'll pencil in Jayden Daniels to the Washington Commanders. So that made because everybody is infighting about what quarterback they want Washington to select. I think Jayden Daniels is in the healthy majority of the fan base right now. So when they heard this, they were ready to let the confetti fly, pop bottles, and celebrate as if the pick was already selected. But Adam Schefter is the most reliable guy. But Adam Schefter ain't perfect, because if you want to find a connection to Washington, 3 years ago in 2021, when the San Francisco 49ers traded up to the 3rd pick of the NFL draft, about the same amount of time away from the draft as we are now, Adam Schefter was on a podcast and he came out and said, San Francisco's pick will be Mac Jones. it'll be Mac Jones. I believe at the end of the day, they will pick Mac Jones at 3. That'll be the pick, and they will keep Jimmy Garoppolo around this year. He said it definitively. He said it with his chest, and he meant it. And he was not on his own at this time. All of the major insiders, it was like a general consensus. Everyone expected San Francisco to trade up for Mac Jones. He seemed like the system quarterback, robot guy Kyle Shanahan needed there. They were like, they're not going big fish hunting. They're not going ceiling hunting for a guy like Trey Lance that has only played 13 games in college. And we all went into the NFL draft believing, okay, Mac Jones is going number 3. It wasn't too hard to believe coming off a national championship year with 4,500 passing yards, 40-plus touchdown. It wasn't hard to believe that Michael McCorkle-Jones was going number 3 in the NFL draft until we got to the NFL draft, and the pick ended up being Trey Lance. They went with the ceiling guy. They went with the unknown. They went with the guy who played for North Dakota State, the Bison. They went with him at number 3 and not who everyone expected them to be. So while Adam Schefter is the most reliable guy, he's one of the few guys you want to believe, but you always listen when Schefter says something, because 8 out of 10 times he's telling you what he's hearing. And that means Adam Schefter would not necessarily be wrong if Jayden Daniels wasn't the pick, because we are in prime smoke season. We're in lying season. That's what's happening at the NFL draft period, the weeks in waiting before selections are actually made. They have sources in every building. Adam Schefter has insiders and sources in every building in the league. These guys could be perpetuating these comments. They could be leading the witness. They could be feeding him bullshit. It could be a smokescreen. I don't know why we necessarily have to be smoke screening. We're picking a quarterback regardless. Maybe they want to wait until they're on the clock so they can firmly make the decision. But this could be what they're telling Adam Schefter right now. Yeah, we're leaning Jayden Daniels. But I just don't see it as productive to tell guys what you're going to do weeks before the draft. It's very obvious the Bears are taking Caleb, but the Bears are the top pick, so there's not really a decision for them to make. Washington has the first legit decision of the opening round of the NFL draft this year between Jayden, Drake, and J.J. McCarthy. We keep seeing reports about J.J. McCarthy being linked to Washington as well, and how Adam Peters loves him. Adam Peters was in that building that drafted Trey Lance. I don't think any of these prospects compare to Trey Lance, because Trey Lance played like 5 football games in college. It feels like it. He played 13. He only started 13 games in college. It was just like Mitchell Trubisky. That's why when people compare Drake May to Mitchell Trubisky, I'm like, bro, you're just saying that because he wears number 10. He's Caucasian and plays for the North Carolina Tar Heels, because their games are not similar. Mitch Trubisky was a game manager in college. He only started 13 games. Drafting guys that only started that amount of games, that is how it could go drastically bad real fast. Drake Mays only started 33 games, but that's 20 more than Trey Lance and Mitchell Trubisky did when they came out. But there's a real decision here for Washington to make. And Adam Schefter and Albert Breer of the Monday Morning Quarterback has all the ties in Boston. He still does sports talk radio in Boston. He came up in Boston working for the Boston Globe. He's very close to this situation as well, because New England is the pick immediately following Washington at number 3. So Albert Breer also co-signs. He's hearing from everybody he knows that Washington is taking Jayden Daniels. So 2 of the biggest names on NFL Insiderville are linking Washington to Jayden Daniels. Guys like Louis Riddick, some of the biggest names on TV, Dan Orlovsky, they think that Jayden Daniels is the best quarterback in the 2024 NFL draft. The signs in the tea leaves as of Sunday, April 7th, is that Washington is going to draft Jayden Daniels with the 2nd overall pick, which I will be totally fine with. I like Jayden Daniels. I really like Drake May and Jayden Daniels. I like them both. And I'm starting to try to brace my heart for the chance Adam Peters and company, for whatever reason, fall in love with recently 21-year-old quarterback J.J. McCarthy. I'm trying to brace myself and psych myself into, okay, I understand the vision if they go JJ. With Drake and Jayden, I am totally content, and I refuse to pick a side because I'm done with heartbreak. I'm done with heartbreak over decisions that are out of my hand. And the Ben Johnson situation still rings in my mind. I get war flashbacks when I think of it, but I love the way that our offseason ended up playing out. But remember, there was only one person who went against the consensus, who went against the grain when it came to Ben Johnson to Washington being a total lock. While everybody was locking it up like Boomer Esiason and all of NFL media, they even mentioned it during the Lions playoff game in the NFC Championship. Ben Johnson expected to take the job in Washington. Adam Schefter comes on Pat McAfee and says, not so fast. Nothing about that is a lock. And they're vetting other guys just as much as they're vetting him. And I don't know where y'all are getting this information from. Not a lock at all. And turned out to be correct. There was nothing locky about the situation that played out with Ben Johnson. And I've learned my lesson. I'm not putting all my equity, my fan equity, all my eggs in one basket here. I like both guys for different reasons, and I'm very cool with us taking Drake May or Jayden Daniels. But as we sit here 18 days out from the NFL draft, all the signs are pointing to Jayden Daniels being Washington's quarterback at number 2, which takes me to my next point. Who do you think has the bigger say in Jayden Daniels being a fit here? Because we know the big dick in the room is Adam Peters, the general manager of the team. He is running the entire football operation. Whose say matters more, Dan Quinn's or Cliff Kingsbury? And I know your first retort to that is going to be obviously Dan Quinn because he's the head coach. But Cliff Kingsbury is the guy who has to get this dude clicking on all cylinders, firing on all cylinders. It's the offensive coordinator. It's his system. The quarterback's going to have to be able to speak fluently and go out and execute on Sundays at 1 o'clock. Who has a bigger say in the quarterback? Is it the defensive coordinator, head coach, or is it our offensive coordinator, the QB whisperer? I would love to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments what y'all think below. But from Dan Quinn's standpoint, he's called him a game changer on radio, and he talks about how mobile quarterbacks are a defensive coordinator's nightmare. And one of the reasons you select Jayden Daniels is because no defensive coordinator is going to have fun game planning around his skill set. A guy that can pass the ball effectively and at any time could take off for 70 yards for a touchdown. It's every defensive coordinator's kryptonite, and nobody wants to defend that shit. Another thing, we're talking about it. Jalen Morgan, my boy, shout out to him. Subscribe to Bleeding BNG. He brought this up in the chat. He was like, I don't know if y'all forgot, but they've told us multiple times that Josh Harris wants to build the Baltimore Ravens. And while I don't think Lamar Jackson and Jayden Daniels is a fair comparison because their playing styles are vastly different, Jayden is the closest thing to Lamar Jackson we've seen in this draft in quite some time. As far as running ability, doesn't mean he runs like him. Lamar is more quick twitch, lateral ability, shake you out your shoes type shit. And Jayden Daniels more straight line speed, second gear, crackhead speed in the open field. It's two drastically different running styles. But this is the most prolific running quarterback selected this high since Lamar Jackson went 32 a few years ago to the Baltimore Ravens, which is still blasphemy that the NFL almost let Lamar Jackson fall out of the first round. If it wasn't for Ozzie Newsome giving the Baltimore Ravens a parting gift as his last year of general manager, we were about to watch Action Jackson fall out of the first round of the NFL draft. The NFL should have learned his lesson from that. Some guys are just good. Some guys you just see. And Lamar is one of those dudes. I don't know how you watched him in college and didn't think that he was going to somehow find a way to be good in the NFL. But staying on topic here, if Jayden Daniels is the pick, like everybody thinks it's going to be the pick, let's roll. If Drake May is going to be the pick, let's roll. If JJ McCarthy is going to be the pick, I'm going to hate it. My stomach's going to turn on draft night, but fuck it. Let's roll. I am giving Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and company the benefit of the doubt to build it in their vision and have a plan for whatever guy we take with the number 2 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. And to be perfectly honest, the draft doesn't start for Washington until after this selection's made, because that's when all the fun begins. We all know what's happening at the number 2 pick. Ain't gonna be no trade backs. It looks like there's not gonna be no trade ups. It's gonna be a quarterback. But what we doing after? When we getting our left tackle, we adding a receiver. We going edge early. We going corner. The draft gets fun after we pick this quarterback. So once we get a guy, we celebrate in a moment. Huge weight lifted off our shoulders, but let's go. Let's start now. Are we going to get back on the board in the first round? We're picking 5 times on night 2. The draft gets fun and gets going for Washington after we select the quarterback. But just giving you the news, as we currently sit here, Jayden Daniels is the betting favorite and the widespread media consensus to be Washington pick with the number 2 overall pick in the draft. And if that does go that way, do not automatically assume this isn't going to work out because it didn't work out before. Jayden Daniels is not Dwayne Haskins. Jayden Daniels is not Robert Griffin III. He's not any of these guys that's been here before. Drake May is not Sam Howell. JJ McCarthy is not Alex Smith. They are all their own person. And for the first time in 25 plus years, Washington is on the same page and has consistent synergy from ownership to the football operation down to the coaching staff. So whoever it does pick, fans, put your petulant fan hive, fan faction bullshit aside, and let's ride with whoever we draft to be our goddamn quarterback, because the team being successful comes before our personal opinions. Always. Always. So let's be objective about it, whoever they do select. But I still stand. I'm cool with either guy. Let's see how it goes. We only got 18 days before we find out who it's going to be. That's all I got for right now. Hail to the Washington Commanders. Until next time, Commander Rio, out.